The American Civil War, fought between 1861 and 1865, remains one of the most defining events in U.S. history. It was a conflict that shaped the nation and changed the course of its future. The war was primarily a struggle over slavery, states' rights, and economic differences between the North and South. By the time the war ended, over 600,000 soldiers had died, and the nation was forever transformed. The road to war. The roots of the Civil War go back to the founding of the nation, but it became more apparent in the early 19th century. The United States was deeply divided between the northern states, where industry was booming, and the southern states, which depended on agriculture, especially cotton, and, most importantly, slavery. While slavery had been abolished in the North, the South relied on it as the backbone of their economy. The growing moral and political divide between the North and South became increasingly apparent. In 1860, when Abraham Lincoln was elected president, tensions reached a breaking point. Lincoln, a Republican, was committed to stopping the expansion of slavery into new territories. In response, Southern states began to secede, fearing that their way of life was under threat. 2. The outbreak of war. On April 12, 1861, Confederate forces attacked Fort Sumter in South Carolina, officially beginning the Civil War. The Union, led by President Lincoln, was determined to preserve the United States, while the Confederacy, led by President Jefferson Davis, fought to maintain their independence and protect the institution of slavery. The conflict was now inevitable. Families, neighbors, and even states were torn apart as the war intensified. 3. Key figures. The Civil War had many important figures on both sides. On the Union side, there was Abraham Lincoln, who aimed to preserve the Union and, later, abolish slavery. Lincoln's leadership and his famous Gettysburg Address were key moments that reshaped the nation's purpose, turning the war into a fight not just for the Union, but for freedom. On the Confederate side, General Robert E. Lee became the most respected leader. Though he was a brilliant strategist, his loyalty to his home state of Virginia led him to fight for the Confederacy, despite his personal belief against secession. Ulysses S. Grant, the Union general who would eventually lead the North to victory, was another key figure. His relentless determination and military genius played a significant role in the defeat of the Confederacy. 4. Major battles. The Civil War was fought on numerous battlefields across the country. Major battles like the Battle of Gettysburg, the Battle of Antietam, and the Battle of Bull Run were pivotal moments that shaped the course of the war. The Battle of Gettysburg, fought in July 1863, marked a turning point in the war. The Union's victory here halted Lee's invasion of the North and gave the Union the momentum it needed. Just months later, Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address, redefining the war's purpose as a struggle for equality and freedom. He famously stated that the war would bring a new birth of freedom. 5. The Emancipation Proclamation. In September 1862, after a critical victory at Antietam, President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which declared all slaves in Confederate-held territories to be free. This was a pivotal moment. It shifted the war's goals from simply preserving the Union to also ending the institution of slavery. 6. The war on the home front. While the soldiers fought on the front lines, civilians also felt the weight of the war. In the South, the war devastated economies and societies, as Union forces employed total war tactics to break the Confederate will. The Union's blockade of Southern ports and General William Tecumseh Sherman's destructive march to the sea weakened the Confederacy and brought the war to the Southern home front. 7. The war's conclusion. By 1865, the Confederacy was on the brink of collapse. General Lee, faced with overwhelming Union forces, surrendered to General Grant at Appomattox Courthouse on April 9, 1865. With Lee's surrender, the war came to an end. On April 14, 1865, just days later, President Lincoln was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth, leaving the nation to mourn the loss of its leader. 8. Aftermath and Reconstruction. The Civil War left the nation in ruins. Over 620,000 soldiers had died, and the South's infrastructure was decimated. The war had ended slavery, but the struggle for civil rights was far from over. During the Reconstruction era, the Southern states were slowly reintegrated into the Union. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were passed, which abolished slavery, granted citizenship, and gave African American men the right to vote. Yet, the road to full equality would take many more years. Conclusion. The Civil War was more than just a battle between two armies. It was a struggle for the soul of the nation. It tested the ideals of freedom, equality, and unity, and the war's legacy continues to shape the United States today. While it resulted in the abolition of slavery, the fight for civil rights and racial equality would continue long after the war's end. The American Civil War was a defining moment in the history of the United States. It remains a powerful reminder of the nation's struggle to live up to its founding ideals, and its enduring quest for freedom and justice.